Well, the first polls are closing in Indiana and Kentucky as the United States enters the final hours of voting in this election. Voters say democracy and the economy are the most important issues informing how they voted in the United States election as per early exit polls. Now, at first blush, the opening round of exit polls aren't too surprising, as analysts have pointed out on NDTV as well. The economy, the state of democracy, abortion rights are the top issues for American voters this year, in keeping with what we've been seeing from public opinion surveys this month and for months. If you dig a bit deeper, however, the sharp partisan divides in the electorate also makes themselves very apparent, because for Republicans, immigration joined the economy near the top of their concerns. Abortion also an issue that has also been huge for Democrats. For those on the left, abortion rights along with democracy were much more important. It's a bit of a surprise that the economy wasn't a dominant top issue for American voters, given how much of the political debate has centered around the post-pandemic spike in inflation. But as has been pointed out by surveys, economic growth is not the top priority for an average American. This could be because there were some Republicans who were worried about the state of American democracy, and they amped up the voice on that, albeit for very different reasons than Democrats. But of course, as I highlight these exit polls and what they indicate, what they suggest, you must remember this is just rough data and should not be treated as gospel, because the real verdict in this election is yet to come. In terms of the latest updates, I must inform you that the Associated Press has called its first states, and there are thus far no surprises. Kamala Harris became the latest Democrat to win Vermont, a party stronghold. Donald Trump has actually won Indiana and Kentucky as per CNN projections, both red states. The AP has not yet called swing states of Georgia or Virginia and South Carolina. I must warn you, don't let these early results on election night fool you. Delayed absentee ballot counts in key swing states could tilt how the presidential race ultimately shakes out. In terms of a flashback, in 2020, in case you remember, states like Georgia and Michigan turned from red to blue on the electoral map as more ballots were received and counted, prompting Donald Trump and his allies to claim the results were rigged and the election stolen. And that brings me to the latest as far as Donald Trump is concerned, because he has said that there has been massive cheating as far as Philadelphia is concerned. Now, that claim, the county commissioner has said, is unsubstantiated. In fact, I must also inform you that Donald Trump has now claimed West Virginia in terms of the current state of play. For further clarity, let's go across to my colleague Benji Hire, who joins us. Benji, what is happening at the moment? Kentucky and Indiana have been called as per CNN projections for Trump. Kamala Harris going with blue Vermont, and now Donald Trump claiming a few more states?
Well, I think ultimately, in terms of, where we predict this race is going to be won and lost, much of the attention currently is on Georgia. The polls closing in the past half an hour, and because of the way that state is counted, and because of the enormous turnout before Election Day, either in person or mail-in, we're expected to get a pretty comprehensive understanding of which way Georgia is trending in the next half an hour or so. The state's Secretary of State saying that 75% of all of Georgia's votes would have been declared by 8 p.m. local time. That's in about 25 minutes. And that will give us, I think, the first real indication, the first real picture as to the way this race is heading. The other states you mentioned, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, expectedly going the Republican way. Those aren't one of the half dozen or so battleground states where it is seen this election could be won or lost. And so we are effectively awaiting the early vote results to come from Georgia, one of those states which is seen as too close to call, having been solidly Republican, solidly red for many, many years, but in the past couple of years becoming a real battleground, and the Democrats hoping that if they can pull off a win there, that really that opens up the path to the White House for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Also, Benji, have polls closed in battleground North Carolina as well as Ohio and West Virginia?
Well, The polls have closed, I can tell you, in a handful of states. They include, as I mentioned before, Georgia, as well as Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Virginia, and Vermont. So we are awaiting the closure of polls further west in the country, such as Ohio, as you said, or such as the battleground states of Michigan and Wisconsin in the Midwest. Those two, as well as Pennsylvania, the so-called blue wall that Joe Biden managed to win and take some states off Donald Trump that the former president won in 2016. And again, that is seen as the chance, really, for Kamala Harris to enforce herself as a prospective president if she can seal those three blue wall Rust Belt states and then potentially take a state like Georgia in America's South. Then that really does open up her path. Early numbers that are coming in from Georgia at the moment slightly favouring the former president Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, but we're really in the very early days here. You know, in effect, if we are starting a hike as the metaphor, we are just beginning on the trail, tying up our shoelaces, filling up our water bottles. We have a long way to go until we come over the crest of that mountain, and that picture as to the way this contest is going is only really going to be painted as we get more comprehensive results, especially from Georgia, and then we await for those polls to close in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan.